My camera is low. This is a nightmare!
But when is it not a nightmare on Bookworms on Call, critically acclaimed podcast?
Okay, so hello everyone, welcome to Bookworms on Call, a podcast where we dig deep into all things literary. My name is Danielle, and I'm joined by my terrific co-host, Evan Rodriguez.
Hello. We're having a good time today.
Ari, Evan, let's talk briefly about how we feel.
Honestly, today should have been the episode about mental health because we are going through it, gamers. Or should I say readers?
Oh shit.
Or should I say listeners? I don't fucking know. Anyway, Danielle and I are both having not good days. We briefly touched on it, but we were not looking forward to recording today because we're our heads just aren't in it right now. But we're doing it anyway because we're hoping it'll be good content.
Indeed.
Because that's what everything is now. It's an opportunity for content.
Yes. Speaking of mental health, I've just been very angry for the past few days or so.
Is it something you want to discuss on the podcast? Is it related?
Not related to writing nor books, but it is related to mental
okay.
health, which this is not the episode for that. However,
Yeah, unfortunately.
unfortunately not. But because of my prior or current rage that I currently feel, I figured that it would be great for us to play a ranting game, Evan.
Ooh, okay. I like games.
So that we can just rant and get things off of our chests and just...
Ooh, okay. What's the conceit? What's the rules of the game? What are we doing?
So we're gonna play Don't Even Get Me Started. You may have heard of it.
Okay.
And the whole point...
I have not.
I have made a list of 1, 2, 3, 4. So about 60-ish things that we can rant about, and I'm gonna roll, and they're categorized in like 4 categories. So each time I'm gonna roll a d15, so that
okay, that's fun.
we can randomly decide what we wanted to talk about. I'll read off some things for you. Some of these are going to be drama that I don't mind spilling tea on. So like, for example, I would be like, rant to me about writer's block. And you have to go on about writer's block. However, it can be positive or negative in any way. And you need to rant about it for a certain amount of time. You're supposed to rant about it for like a minute or so, but fuck that shit. There's no rules here.
Yeah. This is our show. We get to do whatever we want.
Yeah, we will just continue ranting until we run out of time or either one of us runs out of wits.
I already ran out a long time ago, so I could go on forever now.
So I figured that I could go first to give an example.
I would appreciate that.
And I got an 8, which means that I'm going to be ranting about choosing character names. And
That honestly, I wish I could be the one talking about that, because I could go on.
Maybe I'll go first and then you can go next.
Okay.
Because there's no rules in this game.
Alright.
I hate... I hate when sci-fi writers and fantasy writers choose horrible names that you can't even pronounce, that they have no pronunciation guide, and that don't feel like names. It feels like they just did like an astrofical on their keyboard. I hate it. I feel like people forget so oftentimes that more often than not, you are not naming. It's not the author naming the character. It's in the novel, in the canon. It's the character's parents more often than not naming the character. And I feel like people forget that. So it would make no sense if your peasant character was named Xavier Alexander II. Like, what in the world are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, as someone who very much loves to come up with nonsense names for their fantasy sci-fi worlds, I'm gonna give you some insight. Sometimes I give characters ridiculous names to make readers mad.
That's cruel. That's evil.
Sometimes like for example, in Whispers, I have in one chapter, I introduce 2 characters whose names start with CH, and I deliberately have both of those CHs be pronounced differently.
That's cruel. That's evil.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? See, Evan is the perpetrator of this.
Because what's funny to me in my brain is obviously when the book will be done, I would also have like a guide, like a pronunciation guide in the back, like you said. And I love the idea of readers like establishing their personal pronunciation for these two CH names and then going to the back and seeing that they're pronounced not at all how they think they're supposed to be pronounced.
You were a menace.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Meanwhile, I'm someone that chooses practical names because I recognize that the characters' parents are more often than not naming the characters.
Okay, in my defense...
I also write books that have a lot of anti-imperialist themes, so they have POC-ish, like, cultural names.
That's fair.
So.
In my defense, I don't usually do that with, like, protagonist names. Those are usually, like, one-off side characters or, like, very tertiary characters. Just for funsies, but like main characters, I'll give them like more practical names. Except Zios, whose name is spelled like gibberish.
Yes, that is fucking gibberish. When I saw that, I was like, Zios? I kept reading it as Zios.
Look, you can't... I don't know how I could explain the logic of a high schooler trying to give his badass bounty hunter character a cool sounding name.
True. And it's a sci-fi.
Yeah.
I feel like you can get away with more things in sci-fi than fantasy.
Mm-hmm. As someone who, like, has kind of drifted more towards trying to give characters more meaningful names instead of coming up with nonsense names, it's a fucking pain in the ass. I hate trying to come up with meaningful names because I have to, like, actually think about the names. Whereas when I started writing Whispers, I would just fucking make up characters' names on the spot and be like, yep, this is this character's name. And then, like, sometimes...
I mean, I do that sometimes when I'm drafting.
Yeah.
But
for
like
some,
everyone does.
there a switch has like flipped in my brain, and I can't get back to that anymore because now I'm gonna notice like if I'm like overusing like certain like syllable sounds or something like that, and I'm just gonna be like, ugh, I need to be more original with these names, and then I like pour through like pages and pages of like just real world names and like what they mean, or like looking at like foreign language words and adapting those into names, and it's like, maybe we should just stop naming characters. Let the reader name the characters. It's like a fill in the blank thing where it's like it's like how in fan fiction they'll put YN. I should just start doing that for actual books, but it doesn't mean like the reader's name. It just means like your name as in the name you picked for this character. And then they just have to remember who.
That'd be such a nightmare in the fandom, trying to talk about one character in particular.
Oh yeah.
Everyone's just like, oh, it's George. It's Jonathan.
And then there's that one person who like comes up with like a completely weird nonsense name like Blorgan, and it's like, who the fuck is that? And they're like, obviously this character.
Who the fuck is Blorgan?
But otherwise, I do think naming characters like when you find a good name is fun. I like, especially like
when you do find a good name, that is fun.
Especially when like you can come up with like a fun, clever name. I always get excited when I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna name this character this thing, and it has like some like double meanings to it that I think are really fun. I can't think of any off the top of my head because I have too many characters, but you know.
Yeah, when I choose to name my characters, like I said, I always look at it through the lens of I'm not naming the characters most likely the parents are.
Yeah.
And I try to think of what the parents would do first, rather than me, because if it was me, I would choose like the prettiest sounding name, but it's not me, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. For my like more fantastical stories, I don't really do that. I just like pick like what's a fun sounding name. But I get what you mean, and maybe I should do that. It might actually make naming characters a little easier instead of just trying to think of just like the funniest, wackiest name I can. But sometimes thinking of funny, wacky names is the more fun option. Okay. Enough about names. Unless you somehow roll another thing for names.
So, I'm gonna roll for you.
Okay.
And you got a 5, which means you get to rant about... I don't know if you've ever been in a book club. We have a book club.
I have not been in a book club.
Let's just get past that.
Yeah, pick a different one. I mean, I've talked about books in school.
That doesn't count.
Yeah. There's no meaningful discussion happening there. What?
What is your opinion on prologues? I hate them.
As someone who, like, when they write a prologue, who just treats it as a chapter 1 with a fancy name, I don't mind them. Mostly because a lot of the times it just feels like you know, okay, there's a fucking fly in here, and I keep seeing it on my camera, and it's pissing me off. I don't know. I'm fine with prologues as long as they're entertaining. It's like I like a good prologue that like is like a brief scene of dialogue that's like ominous and like sets up something that we're not going to figure out until later. Or like I like when it's just like establishing like some lore that's going to be relevant. Like I'm fine with prologue, especially as someone who uses prologues very liberally. Like actually, okay, I had a book, like I was writing like a book series in middle school and high school about dragons, which I would like to revisit one day. But I had a prologue, but the prologue was actually like an extended series of chapters just setting up the main plot of
That's
the
my
actual
nightmare.
book.
That's my nightmare, Evan.
Yeah, so it was like prologue chapter 1, prologue chapter 2, etc. And that was like the first part of the book, and then when we got to part 2, it was then chapter 1, chapter 2. So, yeah, I'm different. I'm
prologue
special.
defender.
I'm a little quirky. Yeah, I'm fine with prologues. I don't. My God, this thing's huge too. Oh, I bet it's a blue bottle. I'm gonna kill that thing. Anyway, yeah, I'm fine with prologues. I fuck with them.
I do not. I think that prologues more often than not do not need to be included. I think that they can be included throughout the book more often than not. I think that prologues are pretentious.
I've heard people say that. I guess I don't read enough books that actually do have prologues to understand what people mean by they're pretentious. What kind of prologues are you usually reading? Because the ones I read are just like setting up some lore that we'll need to know later that wouldn't otherwise come up.
You could set up the lore throughout the novel.
I guess, but like it's more fun to dangle something in front of the audience like at the very beginning to like get them intrigued and then like jump into the story.
So the books that I'm reading are more often fantasy, and they will be like, oh, I'm the big evil bad guy who's doing something evil, and then that's their prologue, and then we cut to the main character.
I do think a boring type of prologue is like a character like especially like an evil character, like it's just like a brief scene of like an evil character like doing something nefarious, and then like there's no reason for it to be there other than to establish our villain. Like it's more interesting to establish the villain in relation to the character in the actual story. But like
that's what I'm saying.
But like if it's like just like ominous dialogue, like there's no like actual scene, it's just like ominous dialogue in like a set piece or something, I'm fine with that. But if it's like ooh, this evil guy just like killed these people or something, then I think that's boring because it has nothing to do with like the main character. But if we're like setting up the villain and then like the actual introduction is them in relation to the main character, I think that's fine, if I'm even making any sense. Like in my brain these are two completely different things, but I can see from like an outsider perspective how the two different types of prologues I'm describing are the exact same thing, but to me they have completely different vibes, because I've done both and I more enjoy doing one over the other.
I am just not a fan of prologues. I think that they're more often than not unnecessary, and anything that you add in a most of the times, the things that you have in a prologue, you can add throughout the book. Mm-hmm. So why would you have a prologue if... God,
that's valid. There definitely are like, I definitely have read prologues where I'm like, this, we could have had begin with this later. Actually, the most annoying kind of prologue is like we get a scene and then later there's like a flashback that's just like basically a copy paste of the prologue. I think that's really annoying. It's like if you're just gonna copy paste the prologue, don't include the prologue at all.
Do you want another one?
Well, now it's your turn.
Since you had
technically.
My turn.
Yeah.
I go 13. Researching for a story.
Oh, but that's I can't. Well, this would definitely be like a happy kind of rant kind of thing.
I like researching for a story. I think that it's enjoyable. Sure, it can get frustrating, especially for me who tends to base a lot of my fantasy that I do write. I write fantasy novels, and a lot of them do have anti-imperialist themes. So oftentimes, more often than not, I'm researching imperialism in the past and trying to put it in a fantastical lens. It's not fun to learn about imperialism.
Yeah.
But it is still a little bit to learn about history and such. I'm a history nerd, and I like being able to incorporate my love of history and into my fantasy writing. What about you, Evan?
Yeah, to me, sometimes doing the research is like more fun than the actual writing. It's just I just like learning
Really?
about things. I like learning about like people and history and cultures and just like stories that I may not know. So it's like for me it's like one of the most fun aspects of being a creative artist in general. Like it not this isn't about a book, but I was designing a character a few weeks ago, and I was just poring over like just pages and pages of stuff about actually I think I've already talked about this on the podcast, but I was creating a character who like is like a time god or whatever, and basically I was just poring over like just pages and pages of stuff about like different like gods from different cultures or like cultural stories that could like relate to this character. And for me it was just a lot of fun to like learn all these things and try to figure out how I could piece that into like one coherent concept that is recognizable but also still feels very original. So researching is kind of satisfying to me because it's like I'm being given puzzle pieces and then I have to figure out how to create the picture out of all this information that I have absorbed. Yeah, I love doing research. It's also like why like doing video essays is fun to me because it's like that's very research heavy. It's like I love just learning things. It's like I hated learning things in school, but like when I get to like pick what I'm learning, I think it's awesome, and it's like
You're
one
unstoppable.
Of the, yeah, it's one of the best parts about being an artist is like getting to learn things and like explore things I would otherwise not know about. Stupid fly is everywhere. So yeah, so I love doing research. I
love doing research too.
Yeah, and I only ever find it frustrating in that I don't know what to do with like information that I've been given. Like to me one of the most frustrating things is like learning something really cool and being like, oh, I want to like take this and like find a way to incorporate it into the story or this character and not being able to do it like in a very coherent way. It really frustrates me being like, I want to incorporate this into this thing, but it doesn't really work with how I have this thing already. So I either need to completely rework the thing or I need to just take it, stick it to the side and hope I find another use for it, which is always frustrating. So that's the only time I get mad about doing research is when I can't use any of the cool stuff I've learned.
I feel like I only get frustrated when I do research when I feel like I've hit a wall, when I'm like, I don't know where, like, you know, you go research and you go down one path and you go down that hole, and then sometimes you hit a wall and you're like, why can't I find the source that I need? And sometimes those sources are blocked because you have we're blocked behind a paywall.
Yeah. Or there's just some things that like aren't as like easy accessible on the internet. Like you'd have to like talk to people who like know about that stuff or like find physical books on certain topics because it's like the internet, shock and awe, doesn't have everything, and a lot of more niche like cultural stuff like isn't going to be on the internet because a lot of that stuff just isn't being curated by people who have access to the internet or the ability to digitally archive stuff. So that also is really frustrating when like you want to know more about something, but like anything on the internet is like super dubious and like very thin because more in-depth like texts just don't exist on the internet or are like on foreign language internet that you can't read at all. So
oh my god, don't even remind me.
Yeah, all I'm saying is yeah, like I wanted to think of an example. It's again not about books, but like producer Avery has been watching a lot of stuff about like the history of the Pokemon franchise, and there's a lot of stuff that people just don't know because it's been talked about in interviews that were in Japanese that were never translated. So it's like there's a lot of info that we just miss out on because it's in a different language. So it's like it gets frustrating trying to learn things, and then it's like, oh well, whatever.
Well, fuck. Yours is really fun. Creating believable dialogue.
Oh no.
Why are you not good at dialogue?
I personally sometimes I think, ooh, yeah, I'm so good at dialogue, and other times I'm like, I suck at dialogue. Because
Dialogue is my favorite part.
Oh, I like doing dialogue. Don't get me wrong. It's just, for me as someone who's, like, very, like, antisocial and isn't good at talking to people, for me it feels like I am not writing dialogue naturally. It feels like I'm like a robot trying to I'm like an AI trying to replicate what I think people sound like, and a lot of the times I'm not very confident in my dialogue because of that, because I've everything I've learned is from observing others. It's not really how I myself would talk, and unfortunately a lot of that means that a lot of my dialogue writing is also influenced by other pieces of work, which sometimes can have very bad dialogue writing, so that can like kind of skew my results, as it were. But I mean, I do enjoy the practice of writing dialogue because it's a great way to like characterize your characters. Like, I love giving characters like implied accents, and not like writing the accent, but like implying an accent, or like how they approach like humor in the way they speak, or how they approach just like how they approach like sensitive subjects, like, because it can vary wildly between people, and or like how, like, I think for me writing like nervousness is like a really good way to like interpret a character, because a lot of like when people get nervous, they can like respond to things like very differently. Like, sometimes when people are nervous, like they'll just kind of like submit to the situation, just go with the flow. Sometimes when people are nervous, they'll kind of like try to back away from the situation, or like they'll try to like find a lot of humor in the situation. Some people get very doomer if they're really nervous. So I think like writing nervousness can like really give you a lot of insight into who a character is, which I know doesn't necessarily have to do with dialogue, but I was kind of going off of what I was saying about how dialogue and specific situations can be really helpful in interpreting a character. So honestly, even if I'm gonna try to give advice to the audience, even if you don't think you're good at writing dialogue, as long as your characters are distinct, you can always edit the dialogue itself. But
you can always edit
keep it
shit.
distinct. Yeah, but also writing dialogue is still fun if you have like distinct voices for the characters, because it's fun to imagine like these characters, these personalities like bouncing off of each other. Even if I'm not confident in the writing, it's still fun to like think about like, oh, how would this character react to this, etc. Which I know is like such like a one-dimensional thing to say, but it's like, it really is like, it's really fun. So, as not confident in it as I am, it is very fun.
I love writing dialogue. It's my favorite part. It has been since I started writing novels when I was 12. Fun fact, when I did write novels when I was 12, I remember there was a period where I didn't write descriptions at all. I would just write the dialogue, as you would do when you're like a 12-year-old. Because I was just writing for myself. And I had a hell of a time. And I think that because of that, because I focused on dialogue solely when I was young, that makes me, not to tout my own horn, but I'm pretty skilled at writing dialogue in comparison to other writing techniques. And it's also like the linguist in me. Fun fact, I was once upon a time a linguist major. I was majoring in linguistics, Spanish, and French. It's too much.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, but I think because of that, and I have taken plenty of writing analysis courses. I don't know if I told you, I had a course where I literally had to transcribe conversations, and I think you did tell
me about that, yeah.
And I would have to focus on every minute little thing, every cough, every every I would have to time the pauses in between every single pause. And that taught me a lot about writing dialogue. That taught me a lot about how people talk, why people talk the way that they talk, and it also taught me that the reason why we write dialogue to be unrealistic is so that it's good. Yeah. Because people never interrupt people in dialogue in books. Yeah. Like, rarely.
Well, not unless I'm writing the dialogue. Everyone's always interrupting each other.
But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like, in books, you rarely see people interrupt each other unless they're in a fight or whatever, unless there's, like, context for it. But people interrupt each other all the time. People speak over each other all the time.
Yeah.
I and Evan have been doing it.
I was just about to say, there's
all of this time.
I was about to say, it's basically impossible to write characters speaking over each other in writing unless like you just write in description they were speaking over each other, because you can't really do that in a book. So yeah, you don't see stuff like that because it's kind of impossible.
So I think that also feeds my little linguist heart of learning how people talk, learning why people talk the way that they do, etc. And I love being able to transcribe that into conversations. I love being able to write a posh character in comparison to, because in one of the novels that I was formerly writing, there was one. It was told in two characters' point of view. I don't know if it's the correct term for it. Dual point of view.
Dual perspective.
Something like that.
Yeah,
and
like that.
One character comes from a more wealthier upbringing. The other one does not. And it was so much fun to be able to transition between the two. And I got a lot of comments from beta readers being like, I can tell which one is talking. Not even by looking at the name of the character or the chapter title. I love dialogue. It's my favorite part.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I like dialogue too. I'm just not confident in it. Hit me with the next topic. Okay. I don't even know if that one was for you or for me. The dialogue one.
I'll just hit you with it.
I'm loving this. This is really fun.
I realized that we forgot a part of it. Is that we have to say, don't even get me started.
Well, oops.
That's on me.
Hey,
that's the whole point
this
of
is
the thing.
Is this the Don't Even Get Me Started podcast or the Bookworms on Call podcast? Okay, we do what we want to do.
Oh, the next one is called Reading Slumps. Do you read enough to go in a reading slump, Evan?
No. That's all I have to say about that. I will say, okay, not what the prompt is, but I will say I am going to rant about how reading is difficult for me. And it does genuinely frustrate me because I want to read more. And if anything, you could say my life is a reading slump because I desperately want to read more. It's just my body physically will not let me read more than I already do, because if even I could be standing up and walking around, and if I'm reading, I will fall asleep. I don't know what's wrong with me. It just happens. But even if I'm not falling asleep, my brain does not register the words going into my eyeballs. Okay, I will read a sentence and then immediately forget it as soon as I start the next sentence. It makes reading such a slog and so unsatisfying that like it's so hard for me to do nowadays. But I'll still do it for the podcast because the podcast is fun and it gives me an excuse to read. But like reading for like leisure or entertainment is like, it's a challenge, and I hate my body every day for making it so difficult. But that being said, I still read things, just not like books. I read like articles and like articles mostly.
That's still reading.
You know. Yeah, it's still I know it's still reading, but I know but like when people say do you read, they mean do you read books?
Okay, well,
and it's like I can read I can absorb so much information into my brain by like reading like articles about stuff or like science papers or whatever, but it's like books, I don't know why my brain it has such a hard time with like reading like books. It's like I think like I know like a while ago I tried to start Dracula, and like 10 minutes in I was having a good time.
You're not doing yourself any favors by reading Dracula for entertainment.
Hey, I was having a good time, and for some reason my brain was like, it's time to go to sleep, bro, and it was like the middle of the afternoon. It pissed me off.
I feel like
I love reading.
For me, I haven't gotten into reading slumps in the traditional sense. I think it's because I read so much for school that I don't have the chance to. What am I going to do? Not do my reading for school?
Yeah.
I have to. But I have gotten into reading slumps in the sense that I prioritize my school writing so much that I haven't even touched a fun book for months on end. Yeah. So those are my reading slumps, but frankly, I blame that on school more rather than anything else. I do. That's sometimes.
Fair. Always blame school.
Very true. School is the bane of my existence. I am not grateful to have an education.
Drop out, kids.
Even though I'm almost done.
Hey, You got this far already, but if you just started, stop.
Listeners, I am an education pusher. I don't know about Evan. Finish your education. But nonetheless.
Education bad.
Education good.
Education unnecessary.
But yes, those are my reading slumps, and those are my reading slumps. I have gotten into reading slumps where like I read a... Dude, this year... I don't know if I told you, this year has been so rough for reading for me lately. I read about...
Oh no.
Maybe 40-ish books already this year.
Wow.
And I have not read one single 5-star read.
Woof.
That's rough. And it makes me want to go into a reading slump because I'm like...
Danielle, Orc Prince or whatever, wasn't a 5-star? Tamed by the Orc Prince? I don't know what the fuck it was called.
It was called Tamed by the Orc.
Really?
I read Tamed by the Orc. I did.
Wait, no, is that really what it was called? What was it called?
Yeah, it was called Tamed by the Orc.
For
Prince.
real?
I think so.
I'm gonna lose my mind. No way it was called that.
Claimed. Sorry,
Oh,
I heard
claimed. Hey, I remembered something.
Funny story.
That wasn't a 5-star, Danielle?
No, it was not. Funny story. I read that on the plane while going to Evan's place, and I was in a very smutty scene, and I was reading it in public on my Kindle, and I thought I was safe. It's on a Kindle. No one can see what I'm reading when you're on a Kindle. No one sees the cover. You are safe. You are protected. I did not know that this one woman was looking over my shoulder the whole time and reading every single thing that I was reading, and they were going into graphic detail about a sex scene, and I just about died inside. And we had a moment where I closed my Kindle, and then I looked at her and she looked at me, and we had a quiet understanding where I'm like, you read what I was reading, you read what I read what you were reading, so we both know what we were reading together. Oh dear. And then we just both turned around and pretended not to look at each other for the rest of the flight.
In your defense, that lady needs to learn to mind her own business. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, if she didn't want to read about orc penis, she should have kept her eyes forward and not looking at other people's shit. So.
Oh my god, I'm never gonna live that down. That lives in my mind rent free. Well, I'm so glad I get to immortalize it on this podcast.
Yes, I hope you enjoy that, listeners. You know, unless our recording gets fucked up somehow again.
No, do not put that into existence, Evan.
Hey, this is a real wooden dresser, so I can actually knock on wood for us.
Reading slumps, that was yours, so that was my turn now.
Right.
Ooh, here's a good one. Writing every single day. We all know how that turned out for me. If you didn't watch last week's episode, was it last week's episode? Or maybe it was a few episodes ago.
I think it was your last episode, because last week's episode was my D&D bullshit.
So 2 weeks ago, we had an episode talking about writing and mental health, and I pretty much talked about how writing 1,000 words every single day for the past nearly 6 years of my life burned me out, which is a lot of words, folks. Too many, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I think that writing every single day is fucking stupid. I think that it is ridiculous that we put this pressure onto ourselves, because even if you treat it as a job, you still have days off when you go off of a job. You have vacation days. You have off hours where you have hobby time and family time and other priorities time. And I think that writing every single day is ridiculous. It's stupid. It's hustle culture at its worst.
Yeah.
And that's why I took a year off of writing.
Yeah.
Ding.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I still think I write pretty often.
Oh, me too.
Every day is a ridiculous ask. It's like those people who draw every day. It's like, you gotta take some breaks sometimes. Like, I don't think I could do that, because I feel like it would run me dry really fast. It's like, sometimes you just need to take a break. Sometimes you need to not do something creative. As much as I think during the mental health episode, I was like, being creative is as much a part of being human as breathing is. Well, sometimes we also hold our breath. So you don't always have to be creating something. Go play a video game. Go learn a new recipe. Go do something else.
Go on TikTok and get some brain rot.
Yeah, or literally just lay in bed all day and watch videos. You don't have to be creative every day.
Yes.
It's fine. You won't lose your progress. You won't lose your creativity after one day. It's not necessary, and it could actually it could be more detrimental than beneficial. So that's
yes,
my
taking
2
a
cents.
break is incredibly useful and taking a break can be productive.
This is fun. At first, I was like, I'm not looking forward to recording today, but I'm really enjoying this. It's just like
That's
we
good.
Just,
we have a lot more, so we can do as part 2.
Yeah, we can do a part 2.
I don't know if this is useful for you because you said you don't read that much, but overhyped books, that has been my journey recently this year because I have read a lot of hyped books only to be disappointed in the end.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've read like books people love and then I ended up hating it. The only example I can think of, and it's gonna sound like just
Harry Potter?
No, I actually have not read Harry Potter. But I think we have
I read Harry Potter and I hated it.
Ooh. I mean, I've heard that they don't really hold up very well. Divorced from Black Mold Rowling.
Everything.
Yeah. But I think we commiserated on this before. It came out like, I don't know, like 10 years ago now. It's such an irrelevant book. It also is like for babies. But I remember back when I was really into BookTube, everybody was talking about Aru Shah and the End of Time. And I picked up the book because it sounded like my shit. And I hated it. It was one of the worst. Well, I shouldn't say it's one of the worst things I've ever read. But it was one of the worst things I've ever read. And I could not finish it because the main character was just too annoying. And not in like an endearing way, in like a you are annoying kind of way. Like it's not like she was written to be annoying like Lilo in Lilo and Stitch. She was written to be annoying like the little kid character in an adult film. Not an adult film. That sounds like I'm talking about porn. I mean, like a film, like. I mean, like a film for adults. Like she was just really annoying, in a bad way. So I could not. And I'm saying this as like an annoying child character defender. Like I've had to like I will defend annoying child characters, as long as they're written well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like my worst case has to be Harry Potter because, okay, here's the thing, folks. I tried to read Sorcerer's Stone like several times in my childhood because everyone kept saying you had to read Harry Potter, and I'm like, okay, I'll give it another try. And I think I read the first book once, and I was like, this is stupid as hell. Maybe it was because I knew the whole plot already because I watched the movies at that point. Mind you, I'm Gen Z. I think that for all the hype, it should have stood up on its own, and it did not. Yeah. And people were like, you have to read it. And it wasn't until high school when I was so sick and tired of people being like, you have to read the whole thing. And I'm like, you know what? Fine, I will. Just to prove you wrong. So I bought the whole series and I read the whole thing and I hated every single second of it. Do you know how many hours it takes to read those chunky books, Evan?
I mean,
so many.
The series is longer than the Bible, like twice. So, yeah, I imagine it was a slog. Especially when you get to like those really thick books.
Oh my god. I can't believe I wasted all that time. I could have read literally anything else with my time.
You should have been like me, where you read 90% of the first book in like 5th grade, and then had to turn the book back into the library, and then never continued.
I did that too.
Something else instead. Yeah, but you went back and finished it. That's where we're different, Danielle.
But you know what? Now I can say I finished the Harry Potter series and I hated it, and no one can tell me otherwise. Here's a good one. I don't know if... Is it my turn or your turn?
I started the last one, so it's your turn technically.
I don't know. Do we want to add this in, Evan? I know she's a piece of shit, but in here I put some drama, some booktube or book Twitter drama. And one of them being Frady's Moon debacle.
I think you should just tell me about that, because I don't know who that is. I haven't heard about this one yet.
Okay, so Frady's Moon is a popular self-published, I believe, author, fantasy and sci-fi, I believe. And I have read a couple of her books, and beautiful. But she recently came under fire because apparently she was masquerading under several pen names, one of which being that she pretended to be a brown, specifically a Hispanic woman, writing a story. Mind you, she's a white woman. She pretended to be a Hispanic woman writing about a young Mexican teenager, I believe, who is being terrorized by ICE. And throughout book Twitter, mind you, like, she spent years forging relationships with a bunch of popular writers that we probably know, and she forged this like super strong connections with them, becoming friends with them, only for people to discover that she had like several pen names that she was writing under, and she was writing like problematic shit under. And after everything was revealed, she just like blocked everyone. And then now, recently, last time I heard, she's opening up services to other self-published writers to help market their work.
That's that's gross. Just keep it in your
It is
journal,
gross.
man.
It's horrible.
I don't think this is the podcast to discuss this, but what's wrong with white people, bro? Like, only a white person would go, I need to masquerade as a person of color so I can write this really problematic story about a Mexican teenager being terrorized by ICE. I don't think any non-white person would do that.
I'm opening up. There's the Google Doc with all of the evidence of her faking her everything, and it's like 70 pages long.
Jesus Christ, dude.
It's rough. Let me skim it real quick.
It's just, to me, it's weird. It's like she did it under a pseudonym. It's like you didn't have to write it at all. You were doing fine by yourself, as yourself, with your books that you wrote as yourself. Why are you pretending to be a different person who is not your race to write these really troubling sounding stories?
Apparently she's been openly racist as well, aside from being race fakery.
Ooh, okay.
So,
a little more sense.
From what I'm reading, from lithub.com.
Weird world we live in, folks. Bookworms at home. I don't think I have to say this, but don't race fake. That's
no
cool.
Oh my god! You know what? That's so common in the writing community, though.
Yeah, wasn't there someone who's pretending to be an Asian writer?
Oh yeah,
recently?
He was pretending to be an Asian woman.
That's God. I would never. I can't conceive of a situation that would make someone go, I should do that. Like,
that's a good
someone
idea.
Who really wants their work to get attention. I don't think I would ever pretend to be of a different race to do that. I don't know why.
Especially since the publishing world is so white.
Yeah, it's like it's easy street for us, bro. What are you doing?
Don't even get me started.
Hey, that's the name of the game. Whoa. Is one of your hyper-specific categories authors who have race faked?
Yeah. I put some, drama in there. Now it's your turn.
Awesome. Give me something just as controversial.
If you want something from the controversial category, I can give you something from the controversial category.
Just go with your instincts.
The Handbook for Mortals debacle. Do you remember that?
Oh, God. Yeah. I've seen so many videos. Because I was so obsessed with that situation for, a good while. I would watch so many videos about it. It was insane. It was years ago now, so I've since lost a lot of that information. But everybody and their grandma was talking about it, dude. I think I even talked about it with people at school, dude. It was, to me, it was so insane.
Okay, what happened? Give us an update.
Okay, from what I remember, somebody who has no talent wrote a book, and then they bought their own book by the thousands to push it to the New York Times #1 spot, and then when everyone found out that she did that, obviously it was revoked. And I don't know. And then there was something about there was a supposed movie deal for the film, and heavy inclusion of, I think it was the plain white tees in the not only the book but the promo for the theoretical film adaptation. Oh yeah, and the author wanted to play the main character in the film adaptation, despite the author
say that
being
say
like her.
Tell me you're wrong.
No, I'm not. That was what was happening, because I remember people were criticizing her because the main character was like 17 and she was already in her mid-20s at the time. It was like a proto Dear Evan Hansen film situation where it's like someone way too old to play a teenager wanted to play a teenager. And also there was like, I don't know if like there was sexually explicit stuff, but I know there was like some weird sexual themes in the book, and the main character
I
was
think
like 17.
one of the
weird.
characters like spied on someone else through like a keyhole while
Yeah,
they were changing.
I think someone spied on her while she was changing her clothes.
And then it was just never mentioned again.
Yeah. I don't want to go on a tirade about the book itself being poorly written. It's just the things surrounding the book. Oh yeah, also the cover was stolen art. I forgot about that too. Yeah, it was like, okay.
You know more about this
referenced.
than me. I'm sad. I'm seated.
The cover art was heavily referenced from another work by a different artist, and they did the cover without getting permission to do that. Even though, like, I'm sure like the artist would have been fine with it if like they paid them a royalty fee or something. But it's like, yeah, just everything about that book is like a complete disaster. Poorly written. Nobody bought it. It somehow became New York Times #1 for like, I think it was like for like 13 days. I think like they literally put that on the book.
No, I thought it was 22 hours because it said on a sticker.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think I was just misremembering the amount of time, because I remember it was like an amount of time that almost was an actual milestone. But yeah, it was something like 22 hours, where it's like something like that isn't even worth bragging about, because that's not a real achievement. It's like,
it's like calling yourself an Amazon bestseller.
It's not news that it's actually not that hard to get on the New York Times bestseller list. You just have to like sell enough copies, which is how they did it. But also it's like, it's embarrassing that they had to fake that. It's like the book didn't stand out well enough on its own to actually make the list, so they had to fake it.
Yeah.
Which is embarrassing and sad. And also it's embarrassing and sad that they stole art for the cover. It's embarrassing and sad that they kept pretending there was a movie deal, etc. And also the weird self-insert fanfic aspects of it. And also, I think it's... Okay, I keep going on, but it's weird that the main character is named after Scheherazade from... is it 1001 Nights? The collection of Middle Eastern stories. It's weird that the main character is named after the protagonist from that story, despite being like a white girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. It's like I don't know. It's giving white girl named Asia, you know? It's like, why are you named that?
Yeah.
Did anybody think about this? And also just like it doesn't really, going back to like naming characters like meaningful names, it also doesn't lend to the character or her story. Like, why is she named after this character? Mm-hmm. It doesn't really mean anything. So it's dumb. Sorry, I guess I've been waiting to talk about fuck, what was the book called again?
Handbook for Mortals?
Handbook for Mortals, yeah. I guess I've just been waiting to talk about Handbook for Mortals. I wonder if like there's been anything recent about that. I doubt it, but like it'd be really funny if like the author's been up to some shit since then. It'd be really funny.
The next one is for me, I believe, and it is. Don't even get me started on audiobooks versus ebooks versus print books. For me, I say read.
Like this is cut dry to me.
Yeah, read however you want. It doesn't really matter. Your reading is good.
I see it as even if you don't use it, somebody else uses it, and that is reason enough for it to exist. Mm-hmm. Especially audiobooks, like
yeah,
audiobooks to me are like, I don't know if they were meant for this, but audiobooks to me are just like, they're very clearly were invented for disabled people.
Yeah.
And now that they're mainstream, people want to complain about it, but it's like these things exist for a reason. Like even like e-readers are also very beneficial to disabled people who can't like who have like motor issues,
or they can't stare at a white page for long,
hold a book, or like like visual impairment where like looking at pages can be difficult, or like people like me who have trouble like reading like just a book by itself, and like who need it basically read to them. Like some people also just need books read to them, or else they're not gonna retain any of the information. So it's like, for me, this is cut and dry. As long as people are reading and absorbing books and
that
information,
is a good thing.
And like, yes, it's a good thing.
Don't even get me started on different books and their elitism attached to them. I think that it's ridiculous that people are like, you need to read the physical book, and I'm like, okay, go ahead then.
Okay, bro. Yeah.
Go ahead. But if that's what you personally prefer, like, go at it, go off, king.
Yeah.
But to impose that on other people, stinky behavior. Especially because, like you said, audiobooks and ebooks are oftentimes beneficial to people that have that need different ways of reading that are different than the quote-unquote usual way that we think of. And it's a good thing that books are more accessible now. First drafts.
First drafts?
Mm-hmm. That's all I wrote down, so you can choose whatever you want with it.
The elusive first draft. Quick question, Danielle. Have you ever, like, fully... Well, okay. I guess, like, you write a lot of short form stuff, so you definitely have finished first drafts. But, like, for long form stuff...
Yes, I have.
Okay. I've only ever achieved that maybe twice. But also, as you know, I'm a chatty Cathy, even in writing, so...
Oh my god, yes. Evan is horrible. He's such an overwriter.
That's why I haven't finished a lot of first drafts, because I just fucking write too much. I don't know when to stop. Yeah, to me, first drafts are a pain in the ass.
I love first drafts.
Yeah.
Because then you get to write without having to think about it. Like, the first draft is always you telling the story to yourself. I like that part, because that's the fun part. It's editing when you have to get nitty gritty and like.
I think that's partly why my shit is so long-winded, because I need to over-explain to myself so I can remember what's happening. I'm sure I could cut down so much shit, and I have before. Boy, have I cut out so much. It's a necessary evil. As much as I want to like just bore the audience with so many words. I know I can cut a lot of it out. I mean, obviously, I don't actually hate the process of writing a first draft, because writing is fun, but it feels like a hurdle, because I know that I'm just going to be writing forever because I can't control myself.
I love first drafts. They're the fun part about writing for me personally. Like I said, that's when you can just turn your brain off. You can just go la 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 la. You have to think about the editing part. That's future use problem. That's why I like first drafts. They are so difficult to write, as any type of writing is, especially when it's the first one, because you don't know what you're doing yet. Yeah. But even if you have an outline, you're like, Having an outline helps for me personally. Oh, that's another thing we can talk about: plotting versus pantsing, and the elitism with plotters.
Yeah, I think as long as you write a story you're satisfied with, it doesn't matter.
Oh yeah.
But I used to be a huge pantser. I would just write without thinking about it. Now I can't do that. Now I need to like meticulously like
Me too.
Be like, okay, where am I going with this? Like I need to like figure out my theme, my thesis, etc. And then I need to like have a start, a middle, an end, and everything in the middle. And I cannot start writing until I figured all of that out. It's why I can't start writing anything anymore, because I need to figure it all out. And then by the time I'm maybe halfway there, I'm like, oh, I want to write this other thing now. So yeah. Writing's fun, guys. That's why we're doing a podcast about it.
So that was yours. Let me see what mine is. That's boring. I'm going to skip it.
What was it?
It was like adverbs in writing.
Oh, who cares?
Yeah, use them if you want to. Use them if you don't. Who cares? Who gives a shit?
Whatever, dude. Just write your fucking story, dude. Do it if it makes you happy, yeah.
Don't even get me started.
Don't even get me started
on writing diverse characters.
Oh. so passionate about
and
this.
why people should do it more, and why people fumble the bag so hard when writing diverse characters as well. It should be easy to just make a side character that's black. It should be so easy, but no.
It's Danielle.
All you need to do is just describe them. That's so easy, and just treat them no differently.
Danielle, you have to understand, it's hard for us. We don't know any.
They don't have to be black, obviously. They can be disabled, they can be Asian, Hispanic, etc., etc. But, like, oh my god. And get a sensitivity reader.
Oh, god, yeah.
They're there for a reason.
You can definitely tell when someone hasn't gotten a sensitivity reader.
Oh, yeah.
I think I already went on my tirade about how passionate I am about diversity in media in, I think, the mental health episode. If not that one, earlier one. But it's something I really care about. It even pertains back to, like, the doing research thing. It's like, it's fun to talk about these things. I think if you don't do research, or if you don't even try at all, you're a coward. And your writing will suffer for it. It's like, it's really not that hard to create diverse casts of characters, and it's fun to explore different perspectives. Like, that's what's fun about writing, is telling stories. And if you're not exploring different perspectives, you're just going to keep telling the same story over and over again, and then it's boring. You don't even have to, like, be super in depth. It's not that hard to just make a character who isn't straight, white, able-bodied. Like, just, you know, do it and be respectful about it. I actually even saw, but also don't do it to pat yourself on the back, because I actually saw a tweet. It was either today or yesterday, but someone was talking about how, like, they've seen a lot of artists who will start drawing people of color simply to, like, get clout from it. Like, hey guys, look, I'm so inclusive in my art. I draw people of color. And, like, they want to get, like, points for it, basically. And it's like, that's not why we're here. Like, we're not here to, like, get a pat on the back for acknowledging people that don't look like us. It's like, do it because it's important, not to feel good about yourself, you know? From my perspective, I think about it, like, as, like, a gay person. I didn't see anybody who was like that on, like, in the media I consumed. I didn't see any gay people in media growing up, unless it was, like, as a joke. So to me, I'm thinking of, like, you know, like, little kids, not even, like, gay kids, like, just like little kids who are people of color, or who are, like not the same gender as me, etc. And I think, like, well, if I can, like, happen to put somebody that's like them in a book and, like, give them something I didn't have, then that, like, that's why I'm an artist, is to, like, make people feel good. So it's like, let's do that, you know? I don't know.
You took the words out of my mouth. I do a lot of the same thing for a reason. Like, I write diverse characters so that my readers can see themselves in it. Of course, there is a line to draw between writing diverse characters and then writing from their perspective, which is not good.
Yeah.
But when in doubt, get a sensitivity reader.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you can't afford that because writing doesn't pay enough, get some beta readers that fit the bill. It's the bare minimum. So, Evan.
Yes, Danielle.
What? You should not get started on fan fiction.
Oh, you're right. Because I've never written fan fiction. Well, I have written fan fiction.
You're a fucking liar.
Yeah, I have written fan fiction. I just don't continue writing fan fiction because it's not satisfying for me. Because I get too into making my own characters and my own lore that I'm like, I should just write my own original
It's not fan
story.
fiction anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I get too... not to brag, I get too creative with it that it stops being a fanfic. So I just end up writing my own thing. And nowadays, that's how I approach a lot of my projects. A lot of my projects are just something I like, but if someone approached me and was like, how would you have made this thing? So in a way, all of my work is fan fiction, but in a way it's also not, because my whole conceit is I'm taking things I like and then figuring out like what I would do with that concept if I was presented with it. So yeah, I'm not like I don't personally write fanfic. I'm not. It just isn't fun for me. But also, I think writing fanfic is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like if you enjoy writing and you want to write something, fucking write it. You know, like even if it's I don't want to say even if it's fan fiction, because that sounds reductive, but even if it's fan fiction, if you're having fun and doing something you care about,
then it's worthwhile.
Do it. Yeah, it's worth it. Again, it's artistic expression, even if it's fanfic, because like, you know, you don't have to come up with your own characters and story. Like, if you want to express yourself, just express yourself.
I would say I could never get into. This sounds so pretentious when I say it out loud. But I could never get into fanfiction, even as a teenager, because I could never get over the fact that, like, it's not canon.
Yeah. For me, it's not that it's not canon. It's just for me, it's I could tell it was written by somebody who, you know, doesn't professionally write these characters, you know? It's like, I can tell this is, like, this person's very specific interpretation of this character, which is another reason why I don't do fan fiction for myself, because my perspective on a character could be completely different from somebody else's perspective. So like, I might as well just take my perspective and just write my own character with that perspective. There's like a million, like, everybody is different, so everybody is going to engage with a character differently. So that's, to me, where a lot of the disconnect in reading fanfic comes from. It's just being fully aware that, like, this person, like, doesn't have the story Bible. They aren't briefed on how to write this character by executives. So it's like, there's a very specific way fanfic writers go about writing characters. And that doesn't mean it can't be compelling or interesting. It's just, it does create a disconnect for my brain where it's like, I know this is not how the character would ever be written. It's also like, okay, to give an example that I can actually like pull from, it's not a fanfic thing. Well, it technically is a fanfic thing, but it's not like a written fanfic thing. But like it's why I don't like when people make Pokemon fan games, because they always miss like why people like these franchise and these characters in this world. Like, they always try to like add things to like make it like more mature or like more difficult, or like they try to add things that are antithetical to the themes of the franchise, and that's why I don't like them the vast majority of the time, because it's being written in from the perspective of somebody who clearly has a very different interpretation of what they think this franchise or this story or these characters should be. And so yeah, that's my whole disconnect with fanfic and why I don't really engage with it. I also don't really engage with fandom stuff in general, because it's, again, not satisfying for me. I just prefer to create my own stuff and run with it. But I don't condemn
love
it.
fandom culture, but yeah, I could never get into fan fiction. Not for any rich reason. Maybe I just had never read any good fan fictions before. Maybe I'm just unlucky. But maybe. I don't know. But the fandoms that I've been in, I feel like there's some bangers in there. I just haven't come across them yet. Yeah. Maybe I'll search them up after. But perhaps one day I'll get into fan fiction. Just not anytime soon, though.
That could be a fun podcast episode, reviewing a fanfic. We read
podcasts.
Yeah, reviewing a fanfic from like a fandom that we're in.
That would be very fun.
Yeah.
My goodness, but some of them are like 300,000 words.
Yeah,
I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered with that, folks.
Oh yeah. I think like the longest fanfic is like a Super Smash Brothers fanfiction. That's like over 1 million words or something.
That's crazy, dude.
I gotta fact check that now, because that's like, it's like insane. Oh, I'm wrong. It's over 7 million words.
Oh, off by a few.
Yeah, I was off by a couple million words. Also, the result that came up was from 5 years ago, so it's probably even longer now, because I think it is still ongoing.
Evan, I think it's my turn. Maybe we'll do one more.
Yeah, let's just do one more. We've been doing both anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
but don't even get me started on dealing with negative critique or negative reviews. I have received both. I feel like everyone has.
I have a bit of a conniption with this because I feel like we talked about this in depth already in the mental health episode. So I don't feel like I have a lot to say about this that I didn't say there.
I feel like dealing with negative reviews, negative critique, just negativity in general from others in the writing world, one, you kind of have to expect it because you're putting yourself out there.
Yeah, of course.
I think hardening your skin is a useful tool in that. Not to say like pull yourself up by the bootstraps type of behavior, but I've had my fair share of haters as well.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, the fun fact, okay, long story short, someone made a TikTok about me, calling me a bastard orphan son of a whore from the Hamilton audio. Anyway, I'm just gonna scoot past that. The reason why I didn't say their name is because it was actually Evan. That
it was me.
TikTok about me.
You can find it on my TikTok, which is... We're very lucky that I put our TikTok ads in the overlay because I don't know what my own TikTok ad is. I think it's the same as my Instagram at. I'm pretty sure. And
you can follow me on TikTok at Danielle _. I post book videos and such. I don't get affected by negativity when it comes to critique because I see it as another way to grow. Negative reviews, I'm like, oh shit, it's already out there. What am I gonna do now?
Well, you could always do like video game publishers and just release a patch.
I can just email the literary magazine, be like, hey, can you fix this typo I made? But yeah, it's fine. You do what you gotta do with negative reviews.
Yeah.
You deal with it, or you suck it up, or you never publish anything ever again, and I would rather be on the former.
Yeah, it's just part of being an artist. You get critiques. Whatever.
Yeah. And that's how you grow. That's how you get better.
It's not even part of being an artist. It's part of being a human. I feel like even just in general, people get critiqued for existing all the time. So it's like, it's just part of life. Just go with it. Don't let it bog you down too much. But also, if it does bog you down, like, don't be afraid to be a little sad about it. Feel your emotions.
Oh yeah, I've definitely gotten like, ooh, that hurts.
Just don't like try to like internalize it like, and like
ouch.
Don't like.
Oh yeah.
Beat yourself up if you feel bad. Just like feel bad and then like move on. Mm-hmm. Don't like be like, oh, I must be the worst writer ever if this person thinks that. You know, don't do that kind of stuff because that's not productive and it won't help you. That's that on that.
Any closing words?
This is fun. I think I already said it in this episode, but like I said earlier at the beginning, I wasn't looking forward to recording today, but I'm glad Danielle brought this little game to the table because it's fun. I had a lot of fun, and now I'm scrambling to think of what we should do for next week to keep the fun momentum going.
And also for the Don't Even Get Me Started game, folks, we have plenty more to rant about. So if you want a part 2 of this, that would be very much... That'd be good for me, because I don't need to come up with a video idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let us know if you enjoyed this podcast episode. I say video,
leave a
but
comment.
You know what I mean.
Leave several comments. Write a review. And don't forget to follow us on our social medias, which are... Twitter, Instagram, TikTok?
Yes.
And MySpace?
No.
Facebook?
No.
Tumblr?
No. We're not on anything
AOL
else.
Instant Messenger? America Online? That's what AOL is. Newgrounds. We're also on Newgrounds.
We are not.
Yes,
folks.
we are. Danielle is lying to you. She's been lying to you this whole time. She's not even an actual worm. Mm-hmm. She's actually a person in a worm suit.
Oh my god. No. Evan, stop. Cut the recording. Quick.
We've been lying to you this whole time. But you're just going to make your peace with that after the podcast because this has been Bookworms on Call. I'm Evan.
Where we dig deep into all things literary.
That's Danielle. She already started the outro. pick up that fucking phone next time we call, or I'm gonna throw a book at you and it's gonna hurt. Goodbye.
Bye, folks.
Bye. It's over.